Before I ever knew your name, before time decided to introduce us, something in me was already walking toward you, not with certainty, not with a map, but with trust. I've lived enough life to know that real love doesn't rush. It waits patiently, silently, like a promise breathing in the background. Dear future wife, this isn't a speech about finding you. It's about remembering you. Because long before my eyes ever saw you, my soul already knew where it belonged. I don't live without you, not because I am weak, not because I am afraid of being alone, but because life before you was only motion, not meaning. I breathed, I moved, I survived, I smiled at the right moments, I stood tall when the world expected strength. But something essential was missing, something unnamed, something that could not be explained without sounding foolish. I learned how to be calm in chaos, how to stand still when everything was falling apart, how to walk forward carrying scars like badges of honor. Yet even with all that strength, there was an echo inside me, a quiet space that kept asking for you long before I knew who you were. You see, living is not the same as existing. Existing is waking up, eating, working, talking, passing time. Living is when your breath has a reason, when your heart recognizes a rhythm it didn't create on its own. When I say I don't live without you, I mean that my days before you were like black and white memories, clear but colorless. They had shape but no warmth. I was complete on paper, functional in the world, respected, steady, but internally I was unfinished, like a sentence waiting for the right word to make it true. I didn't know it was you I was waiting for. I just knew I was waiting. Waiting through seasons, through wrong turns, through almost loves and nearly right moments. Waiting through conversations that felt hollow and promises that sounded good but never stayed. Waiting while telling myself that independence was enough, that solitude was strength, that needing no one was the highest form of freedom. And maybe it was, for a while. But freedom without connection is just a wide, empty road, and strength without love eventually asks who it is protecting. Then something shifted. Not loudly, not like the movies, no dramatic signs in the sky, just a quiet certainty settling into my bones. The kind of certainty that doesn't ask for permission or proof, the kind that doesn't shout but stays. And suddenly I understood that love is not about filling a void, it's about awakening a part of you that was asleep, a part that refused to open for anything temporary. With you, the silence inside me changed. It stopped being lonely and started being peaceful. I don't live without you because with you, my thoughts slow down, my fears soften, my past stops knocking so loudly. With you, I don't feel the need to escape myself. I don't rehearse who I should be. I don't armor up before speaking. I can sit in stillness and not feel the urge to run. That is not dependence. That is recognition. That is the soul saying, this is safe, this is real, this is home. I have learned that love like this doesn't cage you, it grounds you. It doesn't take your freedom. It gives it direction. Before you, my strength was about endurance. After you, my strength became about presence, staying, choosing, showing up even when words fail. I don't live without you because you are not an addition to my life. You are the lens through which life finally makes sense. And if the world were to strip everything away, titles, plans, noise, expectations, I know this much would remain true, the quiet pull toward you, the calm certainty that says whatever life becomes, whatever shape it takes, it is fuller, truer, and unmistakably alive when you are there, when your existence intersects with mine, when my breath remembers why it started moving forward in the first place, when love stops being an idea and becomes a way of standing in the world, a way of waking up, a way of choosing again and again, not out of fear of loss, but out of a deep knowing that life itself feels unfinished without the echo of your presence, without the shared silence, without the unseen thread that keeps pulling me toward you, gently, endlessly, like a truth that does not need to be spoken to be known. There is a kind of love that doesn't announce itself, that doesn't arrive with fireworks or demand attention. It just sits beside you in silence and somehow changes everything. That's how you came into my inner world. not as a sudden storm, but as a quiet understanding that had been waiting for the right moment to breathe. I've always believed that the loudest truths are often the least real, and the deepest connections rarely need words to survive. With you, silence stopped being empty. It became shared. It became alive. Before you, silence was something I filled with noise, with work, with movement, with distractions that pretended to be purpose. I learned how to keep myself busy enough to avoid listening too closely to my own thoughts. But in the quiet moments, late at night or early in the morning, there was always that familiar feeling of something unfinished, like a door slightly open in a room I had never entered. I didn't know what was behind it, only that it mattered. Waiting is misunderstood. People think waiting is passive, weak, a sign of hesitation. But real waiting is active. It's listening without forcing. It's trusting without seeing. It's choosing not to settle for echoes when you know a real voice exists somewhere. I waited without knowing your face, your voice, your name. I waited by becoming more honest with myself, more patient with time, more willing to walk away from what didn't feel true. Every goodbye, every misconnection, every almost right moment was teaching me how to recognize you without confusion. Recognition doesn't happen in the eyes first, it happens deeper. It happens when something in you relaxes instead of tightening. When you don't feel the need to impress, explain, or protect every part of yourself. When your breathing changes without you noticing. When the mind grows quiet and the heart steps forward without fear. That's how I know this love is real. It didn't rush me. It didn't overwhelm me. It didn't ask me to become someone else. It simply arrived and felt familiar, like returning to a place I had never physically been but somehow remembered. With you, conversations don't feel like performances. They feel like reflections. Words come and go, but meaning stays. And when words disappear completely, nothing is lost. There's a comfort in knowing that presence is enough, that sitting side by side doing nothing extraordinary can still feel complete, that love doesn't always need to be expressed to be understood. Some things are felt so deeply that language would only reduce them. I used to think love was about intensity, about constant reassurance, about dramatic gestures that proved commitment. But this love taught me something quieter, something stronger. It taught me that real connection is steady. It doesn't shake you. It anchors you. It doesn't pull you away from yourself. It brings you closer. In your presence, I don't disappear. I become more real. The waiting made sense only after the recognition. Every moment of solitude, every unanswered question, every pause between heartbeats was shaping the space where you would exist. And now that space feels occupied, not crowded, not heavy, just right, like a chair that was always meant to be filled, like a silence that was always meant to be shared, like a path that didn't need signs anymore because the direction finally feels clear, because the soul knows when it no longer needs to search. When the waiting transforms into staying, into choosing the quiet certainty over the loud uncertainty, into trusting the calm pull that doesn't demand urgency, but asks for presence, patience, and the courage to remain still long enough to feel what has always been true, long enough to understand that recognition is not a moment but a continuous unfolding, a knowing that deepens every time the world grows quiet and the connection remains steady, unspoken, undeniable. Was taught that strength meant standing alone, carrying weight without letting it show, absorbing pain quietly and moving forward without complaint. I learned how to be reliable, how to be composed, how to be the one others lean on while never leaning too hard myself. Vulnerability felt like exposure, like giving the world a map to your weakest places. So I built walls that looked like confidence and called them independence. They worked. They kept me standing. But they also kept me untouched. Then you arrived, and strength began to change its shape, not by force, not by challenge, but by invitation. With you, I didn't feel dismantled. I felt seen, and being seen didn't make me smaller, it made me honest. I didn't have to explain every silence or justify every emotion. I didn't have to pretend that everything was under control. I could admit that some days are heavy, that some thoughts linger longer than they should, that sometimes even the strongest hearts need somewhere safe to rest. There is courage in letting someone witness your uncertainty without trying to fix it first. There is power in allowing another person to know where you are still learning, still healing, still becoming. With you, vulnerability doesn't feel like loss of control. It feels like trust in motion. It feels like choosing connection over protection, truth over performance. It feels like placing your armor down and realizing you don't need it here. I don't need to be impressive with you. I don't need to be unbreakable. I don't need to have all the answers. I can pause mid-sentence. I can change my mind. I can be quiet when words fail. And instead of losing respect, I gain closeness. Instead of distance, there is understanding. That's a rare kind of strength, the kind that grows when you allow yourself to be fully present without editing the parts that don't look perfect. You don't ask me to open up. You make it possible. You don't demand honesty. You create safety. And safety changes everything. It turns guarded hearts into honest ones. It turns survival into living. It allows love to move freely instead of cautiously. I've learned that the strongest bonds are not built on flawless images, but on shared realities, on knowing that both people carry weight and choosing to stand together anyway. Before you, I believed love required proving worth, earning space, demonstrating value through consistency and control. Now I understand that love also requires surrender, not surrender of self, but surrender of fear, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being too much or not enough, the fear that if someone sees the cracks, they'll walk away. With you, those fears lose their grip, not because they vanish, but because they are met with patience instead of judgment. In your presence, I am still strong, but that strength breathes, it bends without breaking, it listens, it learns, it admits when it's tired, it asks for closeness without shame, and in that honesty, something deeper forms. A bond not built on perfection, but on permission. Permission to be human. Permission to be unfinished. Permission to be loved, not for the version that survives everything, but for the one that shows up honestly, open, grounded, willing to stand in the truth of the moment without hiding behind silence, without retreating into distance, without pretending that love is effortless, when in reality it is a daily choice to remain present, to remain open, to remain real even when it would be easier to withdraw, even when the world teaches us to harden instead of soften, to protect instead of trust, to endure instead of connect forever. Isn't a grand promise shouted into the future. It's a quiet decision made over and over again in the present. It's choosing the same person on ordinary days, on tired mornings, in moments that don't feel cinematic or profound. I used to think forever was about certainty, about knowing exactly how everything would unfold. But life doesn't work that way. What it offers instead are moments, small and honest, where you decide to stay even when staying requires patience, effort, and understanding. With you, forever doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel like a contract or a deadline. It feels like continuity, like a path that keeps revealing itself, one step at a time. There is comfort in knowing that we don't need to rush ahead to prove anything, that love doesn't need constant reinforcement to remain real. It just needs attention, NCE, the willingness to keep choosing each other when distractions are easier and silence could become distance. Commitment, I've learned, isn't about intensity, it's about consistency. It's about showing up when the excitement fades and the routine settles in. It's about listening even when you think you already know the answer. It's about understanding that two lives moving together will sometimes misalign, and choosing patience instead of pride in those moments. With you, those choices don't feel like sacrifices, they feel like investments in something that matters. Forever is found in the details, in the way time slows down when we're together, in the way disagreements don't threaten the connection but refine it, in the way apologies come easier because the bond is more important than being right. in the way love becomes less about being seen by the world and more about seeing each other clearly. These are not dramatic acts, but they are enduring ones. They are the kind that last. I don't imagine forever as perfection. I imagine it as resilience, as two people learning how to adjust without losing themselves, as growth that happens side by side instead of apart, as choosing honesty over avoidance, presence over comfort, connection over control. With you, the future doesn't need to be defined in detail to feel secure. It just needs the understanding that we will face it together, with openness, with respect, with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing the foundation is real. There is a calm in this kind of love, a steadiness that doesn't depend on circumstances, even when life shifts, even when plans change, even when uncertainty shows up, the choice remains. Not because it's easy, but because it's meaningful. Because love like this isn't sustained by promises alone, but by daily actions that reaffirm the same truth in different ways. So when I think of forever with you, I don't see an ending or a finish line. I see a continuous beginning, a series of moments where we keep turning toward each other instead of away, where love is not something we reach and hold, but something we practice quietly, intentionally, without needing applause or guarantees. Just the shared understanding that this choice, this connection, this calm, unwavering commitment is where life feels most real, most grounded, most alive.